All right, so here are some topics I've been thinking about for video and radio. What do you prefer? And I gave people the choice: internet whores, failed relationships, soy weak men, destroyed nice guy abuse. Do guns and video games cause violence? Can people hurt you? Can porn hurt you? Race and incest, where does God fit in? Let me take a drink of my coffee. I've had some of you ask me, Brad, I hear you drinking coffee or milk or something like that, yet I don't see a cup actually coming up to your mouth or anything. That's because the what you're seeing on the screen is an artificial intelligence version of myself. You're actually seeing an AI that is moving its mouth whenever I talk on the microphone. Sometimes I don't feel like getting all prettied up for all of you, so my AI runs, and that's exactly what I look like, but that looks like me on a good day all the time. Sometimes I don't feel like brushing my hair and, digging in my butt and doing whatever it takes, putting on makeup, getting all pretty for YouTube. I hope that doesn't bother you that you're watching an AI version of me, but it is me, so I didn't see how that would be like cheating or anything on a YouTube video. So can porn hurt you? I think it can. I think it can hurt you mentally on a subconscious level, and it can hurt you physically. One of the reasons why I believe that is I watch a lot of true stories on like Netflix and a lot of these video streaming sites. And I've watched a lot of interviews on YouTube with people like Jeffrey Dahmer. That's right, there's interviews of him. Ted Bundy, many of these serial killers, the Iceman. That's one of the most scariest interviews I've ever seen. And a lot of these people, they've stated that they watched porn, and they make it clear they're very articulate. Most killers and serial killers and psychopaths tend to be very intelligent, especially those who suffer from like manic depression and all kinds of other stuff. But they all have said that because of themselves looking at porn, it started leading to wanting to see more darker and rougher stuff, where it started to get into violence, where men were basically whipping women and women were beating on men, and very abusive scenarios, and somehow combined with sexual domination and such like this. And a lot of these killers, they said that it ended up making them want to go out and find targets. So for people who are already mentally ill, porn is very harmful for them. I think that it also is bad for like normal people who are trying to get into relationships, or if you've had a hard time getting into relationships, what you expect sexually as well as mentally from your partner. See, a lot of these porn videos that you watch, it gives you this idea that women just want to throw down with you. It gives you this idea that this is the way people are all the time when they're not. Porn is a fantasy type of thing. It's like watching some kind of science fiction or entertainment where someone is acting and they're being goofy because they're trying to make money on one of these websites. And then you get to thinking that's the way women actually are. It can really cause some problems for you when you go out and try to get into a relationship, because you imagine to yourself that the women that act the way they do on porn videos may also act the same way. It's also another thing too. If you've ever had a partner, whether it's a guy or a woman, and you're going out with them and you think they're attractive and they do it for you in many different ways, but if you look at porn, you see all these people who are very muscular, especially if you watch like fancier porn. You see these men who look like a damn Skyrim character, who are all built and muscular, have ding-dongs all the way down to their kneecap. And then the guy you're going out with turns out to have a wee-wee that can barely, stick out long enough over his, well, I don't want to get too weird, but let's just put it this way. The porn always uses your most endowed men. So a woman sees that kind of stuff, and she's going to think that that's the kind of guy she needs in her life in order to be happy. And if she ends up running into Joe Bob or the average layman on the street, and then he takes his clothes off, and she's like, well, goodness gracious, you sure are lacking, sir. And the same thing, unfortunately, happens vice versa. A man watches a bunch of models on a screen, and then he goes out to try to get him a girlfriend. He's going to expect a certain type of figure, right? He's going to expect a certain type of the woman to be like what he fantasized about. And that's the problem with a lot of men and women. It's one of the reasons why marriages fall apart all around the United States of America. 85% of marriages fail, even for Christianity, ladies and gentlemen. Even for Christianity, because people get their idea of what they think the perfect woman or man is. And then instead of loving someone for who they are, we love people because we think they can closest fit our fantasies. And that's not good. It's not good, because when you do that and then you find yourself in a close-knit relationship where you're like living with the person, it's like every 5 minutes you're going to discover secrets about this person. You're going to discover that they're nothing like the way they were whenever you met them, that there's much more to them. I myself, I got very lucky. The woman I ended up getting hooked up with, she had a lot of the great things that I expected from a woman. And according to her, I had a lot of things she expected from a man. And I've been married for 30 years ever since. And we do well with each other. We're able to bounce off each other. But I've seen a lot of relationships fall apart where you got friends who say, man, she's just not, like, for instance, one problem that guys have is they'll hook up with a woman who's attractive and beautiful, but they forget that there's going to be a time that the longer you stay with the woman, the older she's going to get. The older, the hips are going to start spoiling out. You know, it's like a vehicle. You get a really nice car. Eventually, as the years go by, the rust kicks in, the vehicle starts breaking down, and that's what happens to people. It happens on both sides. And you'll say to yourself, unfortunately, there are a lot of men and women who objectify the other gender. And they'll say, well, it's time to refund this vehicle or send this shit to the junkyard and get me something new. And that's really unhealthy for relationships. The difference between a woman or a man and a car, though, is that a car can actually be rebuilt and remodeled and refixed, but on an organic, biological level, the only thing a woman can do is continue to slop on makeup, and a guy, well, he can wear nice clothes, but at the end of the day, sex involves people being naked, right? I myself, I'll be honest with you folks, I've actually looked into porn before, especially whenever I was an atheist. I looked into it. There were times where the wife was sick or wasn't feeling very well, or she was out doing something, and I felt like I wanted to look at something. And I realized whenever I was looking at a lot of this, it made me lust. It made me sexually excited. It made me want to basically go exploring. It made me curious. I looked at all kinds of weird stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And for me, even though I've got a lot of willpower and I love my wife as much as I do, I'll be honest with you, it caused me to think about other stuff. It caused me to think about what it would be like being with the person that I've seen on the screen. And that's not good. It's not good. It's also not good if you are in the middle of having sex and you start thinking about one of those people that you were looking at, or some woman that you were fantasizing about as you walk down the street. When I was younger, this was a lot more difficult to handle. It was a lot more difficult to deal with, to keep my willpower up, to keep my strength, to keep my desire from not going out and doing something stupid. But I know for a fact that if someone got right up in front of me and they were extremely attractive, and they start pulling their clothes off and talking the crazy game, I know that it would be hell on wheels for me to will myself away from it. I have managed to be able to do it, and that's how I know how difficult it is. I've had a lot of women who've actually made passes, made moves. I've had women who said that they would do it right then and there with me, and I would have to, one side of me, the devil on one shoulder would say, yeah, buddy. And then the other side of me would say, no, 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 no. You wouldn't want your wife to do this. You got a wife and kids, Brett. Don't do it. Don't do it. So even the most strongest willed men will find themselves in a, it only takes 5 minutes. It only takes a little while to do something, to commit a sin, and then you can screw up your whole life. And now I'm older, I've become stronger, I've become more willed, so it's not as easy for somebody to say stuff. I get people who message me all the time or email me and send me Facebook messages where they, and I'm not just talking about women, I get from both sides of the aisle, where people say, man, I would love to be able to do this with you and do that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm married, I'm flattered, but no thank you on that. I know some people probably wouldn't believe that. You'd probably say, Brett, you know, I've seen your videos where you were a younger guy and you were pretty attractive, but I don't believe nowadays, you know, where you're almost 50 years old, where people are doing that. Believe it or not, there's a lot of young adults and stuff like that who actually get turned on by senior citizens and older people for some reason. It's weird, right?